Well, I am beyond pleased with the new bundle. Well, so far. I've mentioned this before, but when you're watching these, this is actually my first time putting these together after I received them from our team, or my team, I should say. And as usual, our art director, Ron, designed some very whimsy projects for Easter, and I think that they're going to actually work for a lot of different things. So anyway, without further ado, let's just get into it and let's start putting some of this stuff together. So today we're going to put together our Mad Hatter treat box. So whether you're using this as a centerpiece for Easter, or if you're having a Mad Hatter party, which I know some of you do, you could even, if you omit the ears, well, you could leave the ears on, I suppose. You can use it as even a Halloween decoration. And when I saw Ron's initial sketches, that's the first thing I actually thought of. But of course, with the little bunny ears, it totally lends itself to, well, to Easter. So we're gonna start by putting together our main structure here. And it consists of these 6 pieces that look very similar. All of them do. And I'm just going through and I am folding everything at the score marks. And then we've got some really cool looking panels. And you know, I've not decided whether or not folding these sections here is even necessary, because, well, the box doesn't really curve that much, or the actual hat itself. So anyway, probably should have done this before I started so I don't bore you, but I'm almost done, and I do want to point out some key things about these designs here, or this structure piece, I should say, that you're going to want to keep in mind as you're putting everything together. So of course, get your pieces folded just like I did, and I'm going to discuss something really quick here. Now, on each of these little tabs here, these long tabs, there's a, well, kind of our own Roman numeral system. You can see there's a 1 here, 2 dashes or 2 lines, a 3 lines. Now, the 4 is 4 lines, but they're in a circle. Okay, so you know what, I could maybe just shade that in. We're going to be gluing on top of this, so it doesn't matter, but just so you can see it better, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5 is this little 1, 2, 3, 4 circle with a 1 next to it. So that's our 5. And then 6 is 1, 2, 3, 4 in a circle, 5, 6, 2 single lines. Okay, and you do want to connect them in this order. 1, 2, there's my 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now this process is going to be pretty repetitive, very repetitive actually, and monotonous, but it's a good little thing to kind of get this party started and get your feet wet, get used to the glue bottle, things of that nature. So we're going to put glue on this main tab here, because this one does not curve. It's just pretty much straight up and down. And don't worry if you get a little bit of glue outside of the tab, because we are going to be putting panels on top of this. So all you want to do is match this up nicely so that these score lines here match up with these score lines here. They should seem kind of continuous, and that these tabs match up with these tabs. Give that a second to set, and then what you can do to make sure that you got it right on is fold it onto itself in half like this, and just kind of run your finger along the edge and just observe it from this little top-down angle. Just make sure that they're on the same plane, so to speak. Okay, and that is a good way to kind of gauge that we've got it connected properly. Okay, and then ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to connect these tabs together to form the top of our top hat. So it's pretty straightforward. I think that maybe, well, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to connect these major tabs, these large tabs first, and make this all one continuous piece before I go and connect the smaller tabs. I think that's just going to kind of make it easier to ensure that, by the way, this is 1, this is 2. Now I'm grabbing the piece with the little 3 dashes on it, number 3. But I think this is going to make it so that everything goes together nice and accurate, because these are completely straight, and we can fold them onto themselves and just make sure that these are nice and aligned. And down here you'll notice that these tabs kind of mirror each other. They don't mirror, but they sit perfectly on top of each other where you don't see one or the other peeking through on either side. That's a good indicator that we've got this lined up very precisely, and that is going to set the tone for the rest of the assembly. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to grab number 4, which is the 4 dashes in a circle pattern. Okay, and we're going to get that glued down. Now, the only thing that I'm worried about is it going to be too hard to work with 6 of these pieces connected? But I'm pretty sure I'm kind of going back to my little paper crafting memory bank, and I'm trying to think. My gut tells me that I've done something similar to this and that I'm going to be fine, which is why I'm kind of just on autopilot here. My brain's telling me that this is probably the way to go. Okay, so again, just connecting the major large tabs here, then folding it onto itself, taking a look at these tabs, taking a look at this edge here, edge here, to make sure that it's nice and aligned. You know, I'm that person that when you hear a certain phrase, it always sparks a song, and then I start singing it in my head, and then it's stuck in my head all day. And I was actually, while eating dinner, I think Ed Sheeran was playing on the HomePod inside, so that was kind of like a subconscious ode to Ed. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4. We need number 5, which is the 4 in a circle with a 1 next to it. Okay, and let's get that nice and aligned. Okay, that looks good. And again, I'm not overly concerned about a little bit of glue sticking out, because we've got these panels that are going to cover all this up anyway. So that's why I kind of figured let's start with this, because it is probably the most forgiving part of this assembly, where if we kind of fudge something up, we can hide it. Okay, so now this is number 5, getting my glue on the main tab here, and I've got a little visitor here. The elder bugs are in full swing, so you may see 1 or 2 fly on my desk. Don't worry, they're harmless. I'll probably just end up petting him and sending him on his way, because I don't think he really wants to craft. And I'm not sure if he has thumbs or if he's even capable of crafting, so I don't know if I want to invest the time to try to teach him to craft, or her. I don't even know if it's a boy or a girl. Okay, last piece. This is piece number 6, connecting to number 5 at the main tab there. Okay, and I'm just kind of tucking these triangular tabs underneath. So this is kind of what it should look like when it's one piece. It'd be great if we could just cut this out as one piece, but then you couldn't really fold it or glue it for that matter. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these tabs here and glue them to the neighboring pieces. So I'm going to start with 1 at a time and see how that goes, and see if I can push myself to go 2 at a time. And I'm getting that glue right out to the very edge of that tab, and if you have a little too much, just give it a light dab and thin it out. Okay, and this is where you just want to line that up nicely, and you can actually once you get it lined up, you can actually use your table to kind of press that down into place. Now I want to be sure that I've got it nicely lined up. I can actually fold it onto its side as well. Now that's not going to be the case as we work our way down, but for starters, I think that's fine. So yeah, you know what? I'm going to just do one at a time. And this, again, is where this process is going to get a little monotonous. And I think that for the majority of you, yeah, this is kind of a big piece. These two tabs here at the bottom, they're going to be a little challenging, I think, to get your fingers down there, but it's doable. This one here, you're probably going to have to kind of squeeze it like that with two hands. But as we get up towards the top here, it's going to be a lot easier. So just working our way up now. And just get that glue right out to the very edge. Tuck it back under. And again, it does kind of slant outward just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. Okay? So you want to make sure that these edges are nice and aligned. Okay? You should almost be able to see like half of the score line. And that's kind of you don't want the score line to be completely missing or hidden when you connect these. You want to almost like see half of it. And that's a good indicator that you have it lined up correctly. Okay, so let's get our glue on this last little tab here. And tuck that under. And make sure you get the angle right. And just give that a squeeze. So if you look at it from an angle, you can see that it kind of just curves outward a little bit, like any good top hat should. Okay, all right, so as you may have already guessed, the next step is to simply, you know what I can do? I can kind of just move this out of the way for now, because that's just getting in my way. We can kind of fold this back. And I think maybe because these two tabs are a little challenging to get your fingers into, I might just do these bottom two at the same time. Or not at the same time, but I'm gonna get my glue on them. And maybe a little extra glue on this second one because I'm not gonna get to it right away and I don't want that glue to dry right away. So we're gonna cake that on a little extra heavy. Okay, so I got that one in place. Yeah, that's not too bad. And now we'll move up to the next one. And just do your best to get that nice and aligned with the neighboring piece. Okay, and again, the main goal here is just to get this structure mostly sound. You know, there's a lot of tabs here. There's going to be a lot of glue. Well, not a lot of glue. We're being sparse with the glue, but there's so many sections that are glued together that if one isn't completely, perfectly, immaculately, pristinely glued down, don't lose any sleep over it because it really comes down to the sum of all the parts and each one's pulling its weight and it's making it really strong once all is said and done and the entire team of tabs work together. Okay, so just do your best, get it on there, be precise, and you know, be precise but have fun. And again, don't use too much glue because you're going to lengthen the amount of time that you're working on this, and you don't want that. You want to get it done. You want it to look nice, but you don't want to spend a week on each little tab here because that's kind of takes the fun out of it. So less glue is better. Okay, next section. Now, if you feel comfortable with this, obviously you can go ahead and scrub through and fast forward to the next section where we'll start putting on the panels. Well, actually, we'll probably put the lid on next, but you get my point. Actually, you know what you could do? You can kind of fold this over. Well, maybe not. Well, just do your best to get that aligned. You can get your fingers back there and use your thumb on top here to kind of hold that in place. And then once you know you've got it, move on to the next tab. And just work on your alignment. Make sure it's nice and flush with the neighbor. go. Okay. All right, next set of tabs here. And you can, instead of using your finger, it doesn't always work well for me. Maybe on small tabs like this, where I'm just creating a structure and I don't need it to be perfect, you can use the nozzle on your glue bottle to kind of spread that glue a little bit thinner so it's not so thick, so it sets quicker. That's up to you. Typically I'll use my finger when I'm working on a section where I know that seam is going to be visible, and if I get glue on any surface, that will also be visible. So I try to be super meticulous there, but I mean, this is coming out really well so far, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so we got a couple more little sections like this to glue together by using these tabs here. And for this section, I'm going to continue with my theory here. I'm using 2. I'm going to dab that and thin it out a little bit. That looks a little gloppy. Okay, and get that nice and lined up. I got my middle finger behind this right now, pushing up against my thumb. So I'm kind of creating a little sandwich with my fingers being the bread and the pink or purple piece being, whatever the meat of the day is. I'm gonna go with pepperoni and maybe some turkey. Okay, that's pretty good. Can pop that out of the way. And I'm just gonna get crazy here, and I'm just gonna do the next 2. Because you gotta take some risks sometimes. Okay. I'm living on the edge here. All right, so again, just make sure that those ends, the edges of each side here, line up nicely and accurately. And it does help to fold everything at the score marks before you start assembling, so that the paper just kind of takes on the intended direction, because it is kind of sloping out. If we didn't fold at the score marks there, they'd be a little stiff and probably fighting us a little bit and resisting that angle. And that just kind of makes things a little harder. I mean, it's such a delicate slope that maybe we wouldn't notice, but I don't want to risk it. Okay, so again, I'm doing these 2. And then once we get this one in place, all we're doing next is just closing this up and getting it all connected in a nice circle. Let me move this out of the way so I can get my finger in there. Now that's kind of in the way too. And I may need to reapply glue because that is starting to set. Yeah, I got it. I got it. Okay, a little next one here. And I'm just using my finger behind the tab to kind of push towards my pointer finger here. Yeah, and like I said, I don't have it perfectly glued there. Okay, but that's okay. All right, next set of tabs here. I think these will be a lot easier since they're right on the edge here. Ed Sheeran. I actually watched a documentary on Ed Sheeran. He was on Netflix. Real talented guy. I like what he said actually in the documentary, and I think it applies to paper crafting or any art for that matter. And he said that when you first start writing songs, or in this case, working on a paper project, he kind of used a metaphor of a sink that hadn't been turned on in a long time. And when you turn it on, there's a lot of crap that comes out of the sink before you get good water. So he said that when he was writing music, you know, he kind of had to let the expletive all come out first before he started writing hit songs. So, you know, and that applies to paper as well. You know, let's just start playing with paper, get your experience, let all the bad stuff come out at first, and then before you know it, you'll have beautiful works of art. Okay, all right, so now we're going to close this up. So we're going to put glue, and it's the same process, it's just that we're closing it up now. Get your glue on the large tab here. I'm going to do a nice line right out to the very edge. I was talking to Ron today, and he had a very similar quote. I'm not sure where he found it, but I think he posted it on his Facebook page. He mentioned it to me. He said, and I have to think about what it was. He said, the quote said something like, oops, I gotta redo that. I aligned it a little bit, and that's okay. We can always go in and fix that. Oh, I can't remember what it was. It was something along the lines of, I don't remember. Sorry, I really built that up and then I just totally bombed. My bad. But when I remember, I'll maybe post it in the comments or in the description, because it was really a really good quote. Basically, it's the same. It went along the same lines of what I just said, that Ed Sheeran said about making music or any art for that matter. And when I was talking to him, I thought about how the quote rang true, especially with my photography. I told him, you know, I have 6 hard drives with terabytes and terabytes of photos and some CDs, but I only have 6 pictures of mine hanging on the wall. Okay, so now that we've got this large tab connected here, again, just like we did, we've got the 4 little triangular tabs here that we need to connect. Now, it may be a little tough to get your glue bottle in there, okay? But that's all right. You can try, or, well, there's a couple ways to do this right now, honestly. You can do it from the inside. Let's see if you can see that. You can see the little tabs on the inside. You can peel them back and just apply your glue from the inside if you want. Or what I've started doing is just taking a scrap piece of paper and just putting some glue on that paper there. You can see that. And literally just kind of painting it on either the tab itself or the side that it's connecting to. Just get some glue right on there. And it's really easy to get it right out to the edge. It's very accurate. And then just connect that tab with that little section there and just hold it in place for a moment. So, there's no rule saying that you have to apply your glue directly out of the glue nozzle. That's just silly. You can do it whatever you need to do to get the job done. And it costs you nothing. It's just a scrap piece of paper that I used when I was doing my inking for the 3 projects in this new bundle. Okay, so that just leaves these last 2. I'm gonna do the same thing because that was a breeze. I'm just gonna kind of put some glue on the edge of a scrap piece of paper, thin it out, and just kind of paint it right up along the edge. It doesn't really matter how far in you go, because really, as long as there's enough right along the edge, that is our main goal, is to make sure that that seam is nice and, nice and strong. Okay, and then of course the top one, you can get your finger in there and just hold that in place while it sets, and that's going to need some more glue. I ended up having to, that was the last section that I put glue on, so of course it got the least amount of glue. But again, however you want to do it, I'm just trying to share some other ideas just to kind of get you thinking out of the box a little bit. And I do want to give a shout out to, speaking of thinking out of the box, one of our fans and loyal dreamer, Sheila. I think she has a Polish last name, Zielonka. I think that means yellow in Polish. But she's always thinking out of the box and combining projects, and you know, kind of like the way her mind works. So kudos to you, Sheila. All right. Okay, so there is the main structure of the top hat, and what we want to do to kind of keep this thing from wanting to get all slimy and crazy is put the top on, and that will kind of keep it structurally together. Okay, so what we want to do is, well, first off, the ears are going to be here. Okay, so this is your front. This is where your ears are going to be, and I think since this is going to be the front, we should start by gluing this to the front, and just to make sure that this is nice and together and clean and aligned nicely, and, you know, aesthetically, I think the first tab that we do, we have the most control over, so we'll do the best job, and that's what people are going to be looking at the majority of the time, is that front piece. So let's make that one as perfect as we can in case something happens with the remaining ones here. So take this piece here and get it nice and centered and aligned with that edge there. Okay, make sure it's nice and centered, and then just kind of give it a press. Make sure that you're getting good contact all the way around. Okay, and then we can actually take this and just kind of flip it and press down on our table. Once that glue gets a little tacky, it'll hold on to it nice and strong for you. It's not fully set, but at least you can kind of flip it over and do that with it, and you can see how nice that seam looks there. Okay, so now we're going to open this back up, and we've got these remaining tabs here. We do have to pretty much close these up all at the same time, because I don't want to warp the paper and try to do one section at a time. We'll try to do our best here, and if we need to, we can always go in and paint a little extra glue in the areas that might need a little extra love. So I'm adding some glue right in the center here, and then I'm going to do a little line right out to the edge, which we're going to spread nice and thin, so that when we put this lid on, it's very nice and seamless all the way throughout. Now this purple piece that we're putting on top, it is going to actually show through. Okay, so we're going to be seeing this once all said and done. So we do want this to be as meticulous and precise as possible. You know, paint the pieces. So focus your gaze on the side opposite where the little hinged piece is back here that was already connected, and try to get that nice and aligned first, and then work your way around the rest of it. And if you need to kind of nudge the walls in or out, go ahead and do so now as you're kind of pressing down. Okay, but you know what? That actually worked out really nice. I can tell this is the last side that I did, and the glue isn't as tacky on that side anymore. It's almost set, so it didn't sit, but we can always go and paint that side a little bit with some extra glue. But the rest of it is sitting nice and pretty, so that's a good thing. Yeah, you can see how that's kind of pulling up there, but we'll fix that in a jiffy here. Okay, so just kind of taking a look at my top here, and for the most part, all the little areas look good except for, I think, this one side where I put my glue on last. Well, maybe not. Maybe I didn't put my glue on last, but I put it down last, and it just didn't stick. So I'm throwing a little bit of glue on a scrap piece of paper, and I'm just going to tuck it right under there and just paint a little extra glue right on that little section there. And then I'm just going to press and hold it down nice and flush until it looks really good. Okay, and then while I'm kind of holding that in place, I'm going to check out some other little areas here and just touch those up, just so that everything looks nice and consistent. And the cool thing about this is that, you know, it's just a nice little thin piece of paper. You can get it right in there and just press that down and just kind of hold it, you know, especially around these areas that are forward facing, just so that everything looks nice and precise. I've got a little area here that I want to touch up. You can kind of force that glue into that little crevice there and just hold that down for just a moment and just kind of go around until it looks good to you. And I've got one section, I think that was the section that I kind of did last. And I'm going to clean that up. So, you know, this is, I never used to do this. I don't know, I just thought, well, that's as good as it gets, but you can just go in and fix things as necessary just to make them look perfect. Well, don't aim for perfection. Just do your best. And this is definitely something that you can do to do your best. Nothing's going to be perfect. I've kind of ranted about this before, but you have to keep in mind we're dealing with a design that starts off as a sketch and then goes through a bunch of, well, 2 or 3 different programs, and then it gets converted into digital, and then we've got machines that have to cut them out perfectly, and they don't always do that. So there's a lot of different variables that can make things go crazy and you know, maybe not be perfect, but we're just doing our best. Okay, so anyway, these tabs here, ultimately, these are going to get glued to the little brim. We're not going to do that just yet. We're actually going to stiffen this thing up a little bit, put our panels on while we don't have a brim in the way. It's going to make it a lot easier, I think. So, well, without further ado, we can do that now. So grab these pieces here. In my case, they're like a purple polka dot pattern. I did hit this with a darker purple to kind of just make it look distressed. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with these 2 that have the slits in them, okay? And you can see, obviously, that this one is going to go here. Obviously, this one is not going to work here because that doesn't line up with the slit. So we're going to get this glued on, and we want to try to not obstruct our slit, get it lined up so that the slit is completely visible, while also making sure that this reaches the top and is nice and flush with the top. And actually, I would probably focus your attention more on the top part here to get that nice and consistent all the way around. That being said, I think what you can do is, when we put little panels on like this, I don't typically put glue all the way down. I don't think it's necessary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece here, just make sure it's the right one, and I'm going to get my glue on the top part of it here. I'm going to go down just about that much, and then I'm going to take that glue and brush it all the way up to the very edge there, so that when that does connect, it really will really stay in place and be nice and flush there at the top. So align that, and again, make sure it's nice and centered on this piece so that the slit isn't obstructed. And then just kind of take a look and make sure that it's nice and centered as well. And typically, if you get the slit aligned nicely, then it is centered, and it's pretty much as perfect as it's going to get. Okay, so that being said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to peel this back, and I'm going to get glue on the remaining part of this. I'm just going to go like that. And then, of course, at the bottom, I'm going to add a little extra and smooth that out all the way out to the very edge so that that is nice and has a nice little connection there and doesn't come apart. Okay, so that should just kind of fall into place. Again, keep an eye on that slit. Make sure you can see through there. Okay, and my top, I wasn't holding it long enough, so it's kind of coming undone a little bit. But again, you can always go back in and paint it with a little extra glue if necessary. Okay. There we go. Okay. All right, so that one's in place, and I'm going to flip this over to the other side with the slit and get that in place. Take a look at that, make sure it's nice and flush at the top. Okay, and let's get our glue all the way up here. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to go a little bit further down, more than I did last time, and get that glue right out to the very ends. Okay, and nice and aligned at the top, and then focus on making sure that you're not obstructing the slit. And once that's lined up, give that a press up at the top, like that. And we've got a little bit of wiggle room here. Make sure it's nice and flush at the top, and just kind of hold that in place for a few moments. This paper is actually really thick. This is, who makes this paper? Well, it's Purple Dot. I don't see a name. I'll try to get that for you guys, because I know that it's a really thick cardstock. I want to say it's at least 100 pound, which I like, because it's going to make this thing nice and sturdy for us. Okay, so that, I think that's probably good. And I'm going to flip it over like this. And you can see how this paper's so thick that when I do that, it's almost like a spring, and it's pushing the project away, which is okay, it's fine. That glue should be holding pretty well down there. Okay, I'm gonna grab it like this. I'm gonna get this nice and centered for you so you can see what I'm doing. Whoops. And I'm just gonna spread that glue out to the edge here. And press that down. Just make sure that that slit is nice and lined up. There we go. Okay. All right, so now that we have that in place, these 4 panels are identical. Okay, so it doesn't matter which one goes where. I think I'm gonna head over here to the front and get that nice and aligned. Make sure that it's centered. Okay, and that looks pretty darn good, I think. And we're gonna have some embellishments on this as well. So that looks good to me. Let's do that. Let's go to the front here. We'll do the front section. Okay, so let's get our glue right there. I'm gonna go down a little bit more this time and just paint that out, or kind of stroke it out like that, right to the top, and get that nice and aligned, nice and centered. If you have a little bit of a gap on either side, just kind of adjust this so that it looks kind of consistent. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of a gap. That's normal. But try to get it so that it's as centered as possible. And then kind of look at the bottom as well. Make sure that that's all nice and aligned. And that's looking sharp. Just press. You can stick your hand inside too. Kind of push from underneath to give yourself a little bit of leverage. Okay, and we can flip it down like this, and let's get our glue on the rest of this. Especially out to the very edge here. I think if you're not using this 100-pound paper, this may be a little bit easier for you. I can tell this thing is just really springy. It's so thick, but I kind of like that. Okay, pop that back down, press down, give it a few seconds down here, and then once it's got a hold, you can probably just, you can put this down on your surface and press down on your table to really get it to stick. And there we go. Okay, so there's basically, 3 sections of our hat are done. Now we can go to the back here, and I'm going to do this section now. Get this one nice and centered, nice and flush at the top. Okay. The rest of it's pretty self-explanatory. So at this point, I'm not going to do anything crazy and different. If you want to go ahead and skip or pause me, and so you can listen to your podcast or whatever, get this done, and then meet me back because we're gonna start working on. Well, I think we can probably put the brim together, or the ears. We'll see how I'm feeling. Okay, but again, get that nice and flush with the top, and then take a look here. Make sure you've got it centered. Press that down so it's making good contact. Just like that. Okay, and then we can flip this over, flip that down, get our glue on the rest of this. This is really, really thick paper, and I don't think it's, if you use a little extra glue on a paper this thick, I don't think it's going to really warp it at all. I can't imagine that it would. This is really thick paper. Okay, there we go. Get that nice and aligned, nice and centered. Hold that down right at the very edge. Give that a few seconds to kind of get a grip, and then we can put it down on our table and press down to really force that glue into all those little nooks and crannies there. Okay. All right, so 4 out of 5, or 4 out of 6 are done, which just leaves 2 more. And same process, and that's good. That looks good. All right, so let's start with the top. There we go. I'm gonna go down a little bit more. And just get that right up to the very edge. And that thins it out too, which means it'll dry faster and kind of keep you grooving here. All right, nice and flush at the top. And then take a look, make sure that it's centered here, left and right. Perfect. And just hold that in place for just a moment. Make sure it sets nicely. And that looks good. Okay, so we can take this and just peel it back. Get your glue on the rest of this piece. And again, a nice line there towards the bottom, so the bottom doesn't come pulling apart, or pulling away from the main project here. Whoops. And let's just spread that nice and thin right up to the edge. There we go. Okay. Make sure it's nice and centered. Just kind of hold that for a second. And then we can put that down and press. Oops. Yeah, I'm getting glue on my fingers. I kind of just, with this stuff, I just kind of rub it off with my other fingers. It comes off. Okay. All right. Well, last but not least, one more little piece here. And we'll be ready to move on here. So We've now done this 5 times, so we should be pros. Okay. Again, just make sure that it's nice and flush at the top. And then flip it over this way. Take a look, make sure that it's nice and centered as well. And just hold that in place. Okay. And let's bring this down. So as I'm doing this, the glue is pretty much meeting in the middle there. I've got, I'm doing like half of it on this side and half of it on the top side. There might be a little bit of a gap that doesn't have any glue, but I don't think that's really going to make a difference. Okay, just kind of nudge things a little bit. If you need to center it better, give that a press. You can put that down on your table and press them down there. There we go. Okay, so there is our top hat. Okay, and well, we're ready to move on to the next step here. Okay, one of 2 things we can do next. We can either put the top on. This is the top that goes in the top center of our little Mad Hatter hat. Okay, so we can just do that now, might as well. It's simple enough. Just get your glue all over this piece, and then I'm gonna try not to do that. I'm going to try to kind of work some glue around the perimeter here so that it doesn't come peeling away. Along the very edges. And we don't really have any guides here because it's a pretty straightforward piece. Just get it centered. Make sure that you've got a nice purple border going all the way around, as even as possible. And just press that down. If you want to, once it's tacky enough, flip it over and you can push down from the inside. Just kind of work that perimeter. You can't really look down there. Well, you can, but I can't because I'd be in the way. But if you want, you can just kind of feel for where the tabs are and just press right around the areas where the tabs are. That should be pretty much in line with where that piece is, and there you have it. Okay, so that's all in place. Here's our front. We got our little slits there. And the next thing we can do is take this little piece here. This is going to be the little band that goes around our little Mad Hatter hat, and folds in 2 spots. Okay, and one of them, let me take a look and see here. That looks about right, I'd say. Yep. And then this one here, just make sure that the little slits align nicely, and then that's how you know that you've got it in the right spot. Okay, so I'm gonna start here where the slit is, because I don't want that to I don't want that to go nuts on me and move on accident, because then we won't be able to put our ears in there. But go ahead and just put some glue onto the center section here. Don't put glue on the slit, because it's just going to bleed through. Okay, and pop that right on there, and just align it with the slit, and that's going to kind of set the tone for the placement of the rest of this. Okay, so just be patient, let it really get a nice hold. You can put this down on your surface once it gets a hold, and just kind of press down like that. There we go. Okay, so that was simple. And then just take this, peel this back, and let's get our glue on this section here. And now, because this is kind of the end cap, so to speak, I'm going to put some glue right out to the very edge so that that just kind of sits nice and flush for us. Okay, and just fold that over and just press and hold for just a moment. And let it set. Now this is a white core here, and I did ink the outer edge of this with like a darker purple. I may have even used a red. I don't like this here. And I've got some inking going along that section there, so I'm probably just gonna grab my ink and just hit that with a little bit of pink there. So that fills in the white, and it also kind of keeps it consistent with the rest of the inking and distressing that we have going on there. So we'll do that side as well. Yeah, so if you are having like a Mad Hatter party, this would make a great gift for the birthday boy or girl, and then it can be used as a nice little centerpiece for the party as well. All right, so next section here is this section here with our nice little slit. Okay, and then you know what I might do, because there's a little white there. I'm just gonna hit that edge with my red. Just kind of hide some of that. And it's okay if I'm hitting the purple with it, because that's gonna be covered up anyway. So that looks pretty good, almost there. That's good enough. Okay, so with this one here, I am going to start on the section that has the slit, because again, I want to make sure that I get that aligned accurately so that when it comes time to put our ears on, we don't run into any problems. Okay, and I did run some glue right out to the very edge of this. So pop that in place and use the little slit there as your guide for placement, while also making sure that it's kind of on the same plane as its neighbor here, so that it looks almost seamless. Okay, and there it goes. That looks really good, actually. Kind of line that up almost perfectly, and it should be right up to the edge here as well. Okay, and that looks great. That looks really good. Okay, I'm just going to take a little bit of my red or dark purple here and just kind of hit the corners of this, hide some of that white. That looks good. And that just leaves, oh, did I not do this? Oh, I guess I didn't do that one yet. Well, that was silly, Leo. All right, so we can peel this back, and this one, again, there's no edge here, so we don't need to worry about putting glue up to the edge on that one since it's in the middle, but this one here, I am going to want to put some glue on the edge there and run it right up to the very edge, and just fold that over, and then fold this over. And you might need to kind of pull it taut a little bit. There we go. Perfect. And that is looking sharp. Yeah, and this paper is kind of thick too. So I'm gonna just work this piece now. Get a little bit of glue there, and of course, as always, on this little end cap piece, get that glue right out to the very edge so that it sits nice and flush up against, and you can see how nicely that meets up with the other piece here. Okay, just hold that in place for a few moments. Make sure it really stays nicely for us. And you know, this was, I think, probably the most challenging part, and we did it. Okay, so there's our little Mad Hatter hat. These tabs here, again, we're going to use these to kind of connect this to the brim. Okay, so we can kind of pop those out for now, and we'll just let this sit and kind of get let it kind of solidify a little bit before we move on. But that looks really sharp. All right, so kind of decided to work on the brim first and then do the ears. It doesn't really matter, it can go in any order. So there's 3 layers to the brim. The largest one here is going to be in the middle. This one here is a little bit smaller. This is going to go on the bottom, and we're going to put this on last to cover up the tabs. But this is going to go on top like this. So we've got a pattern, and then we've got you know, the edge of the brim has got a nice little green on it. But now, what we want to do is we're going to train this so that it's not just flat. We want it to kind of curl up. Okay, so I'm going to take 2 opposite sides and just kind of curl them a little bit on a dowel. We can do this again later. We're going to have to, but in order for this to kind of not come ripping apart later on, we got to kind of pre-train it a little bit. And this is a really thick paper, and I don't want to crease it, so I'm kind of just going to use my fingers here. I think the dowel maybe is giving it too much of an angle, and it's kind of creasing it. So I'm just kind of lifting it up a little bit. I don't want to overdo it just yet, but I do want to kind of get it working up that way. Okay, and this paper's really thick. It's kind of creasing it just a little bit, but that's okay. Okay, so just kind of raising it a little bit. You can see how it's kind of going like that. Okay, and then maybe more towards the center there. This is all going to flatten out mostly once we kind of glue this together. Okay, because it's going to go like this. So we want to do the same thing with 2 sides. So pick a side and then just do the opposite side as well. Just kind of fold it and curve it a little bit so that when we glue this together, they're somewhat in the ballpark as far as the curve goes. It'll just make it easier for the glue to stay on. And this thing won't kind of fight itself and try to come apart. So just give it a little, don't overdo it because you don't want to fold it. You don't want to bend it or warp it. Just want to kind of tug on those, or not tug on the fibers, but loosen the fibers. It's kind of what we're doing right now. We're loosening these little fibers here and just kind of shaping it. I kind of did a better job on that side than I did on this side. That's fine. Okay. All right, so those are pretty darn close to where they're not going to fight. Okay, so I can flip this over, and we're going to put glue on this entire piece here. Just make sure that the curved sides, you kind of get those all together. I'm going to start with applying my glue around the center here, and then I'm going to try to do a nice fine line around the perimeter, just so that that stays on there nicely for us and doesn't come peeling off anywhere, because especially around those parts that we folded, there's going to be a little bit of resistance there. I need more glue here. And you got to kind of work quick. It's spring, we got a little more humidity, but I think the humidity plays a role in how fast this glue sets and becomes tacky. So I don't want to have to sit here and paint some extra glue on this if I don't have to. So I'm going to try to work as quickly as I can. Okay, so again, just get those 2 sides that we kind of trained together and get that nice and aligned, nice and centered all the way around. And when you got it, press down. Maybe you might need to nudge it here and there, just a tad. There we go. And then these sections here where we curved it, you can press down. Those fibers, they kind of have a memory, and they'll remember where to go, because we're gonna curl this again once this is nice and set. See, we can actually kind of start doing it now while it's still kind of while the glue's still kind of drying out here. So I'm just kind of holding it here and peeling this up now, like that. Okay, there we go. That's pretty good. Cool. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I've got a little area here and there that's kind of pulling away. So as we've done a few times already, I'm just gonna grab some glue, stick it under in these little areas where maybe it just didn't get enough glue, or maybe it just didn't make good contact, and just press that into place. Okay, now these little areas that are that we warped, so to speak, those are going to be on the left and right side of center. So where the ears are going to go, basically. So we want to make sure that when we connect this to the actual top hat, that we have them in those areas. We don't want the folds to be in the front and the back or off to the sides. Well, diagonal sides, I should say. We want them on the sides directly. Okay, so let's just determine that this is the front of our hat. This is kind of where we did the warping. We're going to take and kind of extend the warping a little bit off of one of these points. So here's the front. Find this point and this point, and let's just kind of train this a little bit more based on that point. Okay, so we can just kind of bring that up like that. And you know what, there's really no exact science to this. It's all going to be based on aesthetic and how you want it to look at the end of the day. So, you know, and if you want to keep yours flat, you can. But I think that is pretty good. So now what we do is we take our hat, you can flip it over like this. Again, you know what, before we do that, let's just make sure that the areas that we warped are exactly left and right of the center here. Okay, so, and they are. And actually, I'm gonna kind of warp this a little bit more too. Like that. And maybe a little more there. Okay. So again, this is the front here, and this is the front here. So I'm going to make sure that those stay in line. I'm going to flip this over, and now what we're going to do is we're going to take these tabs and glue them to the underside of our brim here. And I'm going to start with the front, because again, that is the section that we're going to be looking at the most. I'm not really too concerned about getting the glue right out to the very edge. Get it close. Doesn't have to be perfect, and then just kind of fold it over and just squeeze it between your fingers like so. Okay, then I'm going to work my way over to the opposite side and fold that over after we get some glue on there. And just press that down. And then just pick another side. Get some glue onto our tab and pop that into place. And let's go to the other side here. Press that down. Now while you're doing that, just make sure that the brim of the hat is nice and flush and aligned there as well. Okay, and we'll go here. And finally, last one. Fold that down, give it a press, and there we go. Okay, there we go. All right, so we're starting to come together, and again, gonna need to maybe play with this a little bit more just to get it right, but I'm not overly concerned about it because that is looking really sharp so far. You can see how it's got a little bit of a curve to it. This paper is really thick. It's almost hard to work with. And I've got a little section here that I want to kind of paint a little glue underneath just to get it to sit more flush. There we go. Give that a nice press. Okay. All right, so we can flip this back over, and now we've got this piece here, and that's going to cover up our tabs. So this is AC cardstock, and it's a lot more malleable. So I don't think I really need to train this. Those other two pieces are already nice and trained. This is a lighter cardstock, and I think it's just going to kind of adapt to its surroundings more easily. And I'm going around the perimeter there, and then maybe just around the inner part here like that. And just get that nice and lined up with the center. Like so. And then just kind of make a pie. And this little area here where it's curved, you're going to want to kind of hold that in place a little bit longer just to make sure that it maintains that curve. If you have some paper clips, not paper clips, clothespins, that would be a good time to, I'm just going to hold it like this on both sides. And if I need to, I can always go in and do a little painting with some extra glue on little sections that might be kind of coming apart. But you can see how nice and clean the bottom looks now with this extra piece added to kind of cover up those tabs. And it definitely, I think this would be a good hat for a dog. I think it would fit a nice dog. Okay, here we go. All right, Mad Hatter hat. You are really coming along here. And again, if you've got little areas that are kind of poking up still, you can go in and just paint a little bit of glue. I'm going to clean this up a little bit here. I don't think I applied pressure enough in these little areas here. So I'm just going to clean that up, a little extra love. Okay. There we go. All right. Looking good. All right, so we've got some ears that we need to put on there. And our ears are here. Okay, and then all that's left after that is the actual base of our box and some flowers. So we're pretty much rounding the home stretch here. Okay, so here's our ear, and the ear has a little score mark going through the center here. So you want to fold it in like this to kind of cup the ear. So it's like this, okay? And then we've got a tab. And the ear has two sections. There's a front and a back. And you'll see here, we did this out of glitter, and then the other one, it's a little bit smaller, and it has a bee on it, okay? And it's gonna actually, they're gonna go back to back like this. Okay, so we're going to fold this one the opposite way. And then we've got these two tabs. They're going to kind of work together. We're going to slide them through. And we're going to use those to kind of glue that down. Okay, but you can see what that looks like. So there's the front, there's the back. It's going to go like that. And I've got a texture on this. Okay, so it's, when they come out, they're kind of mirrored like this. So you want to make sure you're using the right one. Okay, so they're going to go like this. We're going to glue these on first just to kind of create a nice thick ear. And again, this one's going to have a really thin little border around the back. Okay, so let's do that. Let's get our glue on this piece here. And don't put any glue on the tabs just yet. We don't want to do that. We just want to get the front and the back of the ear glued together. Okay. So just get that nice and centered. And also take a look at where the tabs are. The tabs should be pretty much like right next to each other like that. Okay. There we go. And that just kind of thickens it up. And it also gives us two tabs so that when we go to mount this inside, it holds for us nicely. Okay, and don't forget to cup this. Also, you know what you can do? I'm going to grab a thinner dowel here, and I'm going to train the ears in so that they're kind of cupped in, or you know, the tops are not pointed, they're kind of floppy, a little floppy ear there. Okay, and then we have the little pink part of our ear, and again, just make sure you get the right one. The pointed end is going to be at the bottom, the round end at the top, and obviously you want it to go in the correct direction. So that is the incorrect piece. This is the correct piece. This is how it should look. And just like we did with the front part of the ear, we're going to do a valley fold. Okay, and we're going to glue that right to the inside there. And let me take a look here. Well, we've got, should go pretty much right about there. Okay, so you can see where it kind of terminates there on the bottom. And that looks pretty darn good. So let's get our glue on the back of the inner part of our little bunny ears. And definitely get some in the center here where it's creased. Okay, and just pop that in. And now I'm gluing cardstock to glitter, and this is always fun, waiting for this to hold. It's like trying to glue, it's like trying to glue paper onto, well, I don't even know what it's like, but it's not, it doesn't go very quick. You got to be patient with this and just continue to kind of press this and hold until it really sets. Okay, so I'd say that is pretty good there. Yeah, and you want to kind of align this so that you get pretty much a nice even border all the way around. It's you know, the ears aren't really like perfectly symmetrical like a perfect square or a perfect triangle, but just do your best to get that nice and centered. And again, because I'm gluing cardstock on the glitter, I've got some little areas that just need a little extra love. I'm gonna paint some glue on there and just hold, press and hold that until it really sets and stays for us. Okay. And of course you can see that I inked the, well, in this case it's like a white glitter with a little bit of turquoise, and then the pink ears I hit with a little bit of a darker, I might have used red again. I think I did actually. Okay, so again on the other side we're gonna take our main front piece, in my case it's the glitter, and we're gonna do a valley fold right up to where the creases are, or the score marks I should say. And we've got our little tab here, okay, and then we're going to take this piece here and we're going to do, I guess depending on how you hold it, it's either a valley fold or a mountain fold. This is a mountain fold now. I'm looking at the texture side, and that's going to go on like so, just like we did before. So let's get our glue on this piece. Definitely, this project is definitely a little more involved, but I mean, where else are you going to find something like this? It's definitely a keepsake as well. All right, so get that nice and aligned. Should have somewhat of an even border, but most importantly, take a look at the tabs. They should be kind of right next to each other as far as where the little points terminate. Okay, so let's get that nice and in place. You can kind of give that another fold while it's kind of setting. Okay, and then we'll take our little ear, the inner ear part, give that a nice valley fold. And let's get our glue on the back. And I'm going to go a little heavy because I know I'm gluing onto glitter. Okay. And again, do your best to kind of get that nice and centered if possible. Just kind of use your eyes and determine what looks symmetrical. Try to make it look as symmetrical as possible. I don't really have a definitive guide on where to position this. And then while I've got this, I'm going to take the tip of the ear, and just kind of curl it down. This is a little bit of an older bunny, and I think his ears may not have the best circulation. He might need, well, if he's with Alice, she might have a little blue pill that would help the tip of his ear kind of stand up higher. Anyway, okay, so next thing we can do is actually, well, that's not done yet. It's still kind of setting, but we're going to take the 2 tabs at the base of the ear and stick it through those little slits that we were paying very close attention to earlier in the tutorial. And then we're going to kind of glue that into place from the inside of our box. Okay, so take the tabs and kind of squeeze them together like that, and make sure you got the right ear, and slide it through just like that. Okay, now on the inside, you can see the 2 tabs. What we're going to do is we're going to put glue on both sides here. Then we're going to take these tabs and spread them apart and press them against the inside of our box. And it could possibly help to put your fingers on either side of the ear here, as well as on the inside here, and hold that. Now again, I'm working with glitter on one of these sides, so I really need to be patient for this to kind of make sure it sits right. And make sure you get the right ear. You don't want the left ear on the right side and vice versa. So be careful with that. But you can see what that's starting to look like. A really cool piece. Kudos to our art director, Mr. Gutman, for designing this product, and Diana for making it a joy to assemble everything so far. And again, this is my first time putting this together. Everything so far has been going together perfectly. Okay, so again, I'm working with glitter, and I just have to wait. I just have to wait. There we go. Is it sticking? Please stick. I might have to get the hot glue out. Maybe not. But you definitely want to make sure that this is nice and flush on the inside, because we do have a box that's going to go in here, and we want that box to slide in and out effortlessly. Okay, and I got glue all over my fingers, so it's kind of pulling it away. But there you go. There's one ear in place. Okay. And now we just have to repeat that same thing. Oh boy, I had some glue that shot out from that little slit there. That ain't good. I'm gonna kind of scrape that off. Okay, so same thing on this side. You're gonna take the 2 tabs, squeeze them together, feed them through the slit. Okay, and then get on the inside here. You can see where those 2 tabs are. And we're going to throw some glue. You can either put them on the actual tab or next to the tab on the inside part of the hat. Doesn't really matter as long as there's glue there. And make sure it's nice and properly aligned. And then just spread those tabs apart and press them down onto the inside of the hat. I don't know how the heck glue just got out there. That's okay. All right, so just gonna be patient and let that kind of set, and you can see what that's starting to look like. We've got our Mad Hatter hat with the ears poking through. It's looking really sharp. And this side's kind of gluing together and holding together better than the other side. So that's always a bonus. All right, well guys, what do you say? Look at that. That's awesome. What do you say we kind of do something a little easier right now before we go into the flowers, and let's just make the box that goes inside our little hat here. It does actually double as a gift box. should you want to present a gift in it. So take these pieces here, and these are the walls of our box. Just go ahead and fold everything at the tabs. Okay, now this piece here, this piece is, I think this is a liner. I don't know if it has an L on it. I don't think it does, but that's okay. All right, get everything folded here. All right. There we go. And we want to join these two sections together. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of glue onto one of these tabs and just make sure that that glue goes right out to the very edge. And just lay this one right on top of the tab. Make sure that those score lines are all matching up nicely. And just press right there. Just hold that in place for just a moment, and then we can take it and flip it onto itself and check our work. These tabs should kind of match up exactly. And make sure it's flush here. That looks good. All right, now we can take this. We've got one more tab here. Get our glue on this tab. Nice little glue, line of glue right out to the edge. And just press that down like so. Give that a second. And then just kind of fold it onto itself. Check your work there, that looks good. Okay, there we go. All right, so those are the walls of our little box here. Nice little line out to the edge. So this thing is nice and clean. We're gonna spread that out with our fingers. You could use, you know, a scrap piece of paper to kind of paint this on, or if you have a brush or whatever. I just feel like I have more control with my finger as far as where the glue goes, and I can kind of feel where my finger is relative to this wall here, and I can kind of keep that glue right on the tab without it spilling over onto the section below it. Okay, so just as we did before, what we want to do is take and just focus on the side opposite of where it's already hinged and get that part nice and aligned, and it makes it a lot easier the rest of the way around. Okay, so kind of scooch the walls around if necessary, either push them in just a tad or pop them out if you need to. I usually don't have to pop them out, you kind of have to scooch them in most of the time. Well, see, actually, now that I said that, you gotta kind of pop that out just a tad. And just run your thumb, or any finger for that matter, right along the edges there. Kind of, and then we can flip it over and press down from the inside to get that to really hold, and that looks really nice. And then this is in fact a liner, so what you can do is just do a little ring around the, you can put some on the tabs and then a little bit in the center, just like that. It doesn't need to be super clean, and then just pop that in there. That's going to reinforce it and hide the tabs, make our little box nice and pretty. So whatever you put in here, it's going to look nice even after the recipient takes it out. Okay, so but there's our little container for our box, and as you'll see, it slides in there nicely. Okay, so our box is in, our hat is done, and all that's really left to do now is embellish it with our pretty little flowers that we have here. So we're going to do that next. All right, so on to the last part here, which is the flowers. I've got them here, and I did some inking on all the flowers. There's if you go to the website and look up the Posies video, the assembly video, you can see the inking techniques. I've showed them a bunch of different times, but anyway, we'll put the small one together first. And what we want to do is, well, these are the little leaves that go along with it. And for some reason, I'm missing my 1/4-inch dowel. And I like that one a lot, so I'm gonna have to use, I'm just gonna use a pen, I guess. I'm gonna have to use a pen to do my training, which is fine. So what we want to do with this is just kind of train this so that they're kind of well, folding down or bending, drooping downward like so. And then what we can do is you can take, and you can see there's some score lines at the tips of these. Now, because we've kind of folded them down, you can kind of pinch them a little bit. You can't pinch them too much because then they're going to want to kind of come back up. So just give them a little pinch and then kind of train them back down after you pinch it. And that's just to kind of give it a little extra interest there right at the tip. Okay, so just kind of pinch it, and it just kind of helps the shadows and the light play with it a little bit. Okay, so we got that, and we've got this little piece here, and what we want to do with this is just kind of train it and just go this way and that, whatever you want to do, just kind of make it random. So I'm training this up, and then I'm going to take and just kind of curl this down a little bit, just make it interesting so it's not flat. Whichever way you want to train it is fine. Okay, and what we want to do is, you'll notice that there's two really thick leaves on the left and right, the small one at the top, and then the middle-sized ones towards the bottom. Okay, and what we're going to do is take this, and looking at it like this, we're going to take this piece and glue it so that this longer part is coming down the center here, like so. And then this shorter piece is coming off to the side. And what we need to do is just throw a little bit of glue right in the center here. Take this part and just glue it right to the center, like so. And just kind of stagger it like that and let it set. Okay, now this part we're going to want to kind of curl down because it's going to be on top of the hat, and these little branches are going to be kind of drooping over the hat. And we can always finesse that later on too. It's not a big deal. All right, now as far as the petal or the actual flower goes, we'll fold these petals up first. Okay, and then we're going to take a dowel or a pencil. I'm going to use this thin dowel here, and I'm going to curl these leaves back so that they're like that. And I'm doing this from the underside. So just kind of going like that. Okay, and then that's kind of what the end result should look like that. And again, this is kind of our bottom here. Yeah, this is our bottom here. We're going to glue our flower on like so. So let's just flip this over. Just throw a little bit of glue on the back side of this and just center it right on the leaf part. And I'm going to do it like that. Yeah, I'm going to go like that, I think. That looks nice. Okay, and then we've got a little stamen piece that's going to go right in the center. I'll show you that in just a second. Let me zoom in for you. Okay, you should be able to see that pretty well. Okay, and now the little stamen pieces, we're just going to kind of fold them in a little bit so they're not so flat. Just kind of wrapping them around my dowel just to kind of give them a little bit of life so they're not just laying there flat. And then you can kind of take it and just cup it, kind of roll it between your fingers to make them stand up more. And they're probably going to flatten out a little bit, but that's okay. And then just throw a little bit of glue right on the underside, right in the center, and pop that right in the center of your flower, like so. There we go. Oops, let's be a little more patient there, Leo. There we go. Now take a look at the final photo and even the trailer, because we're gonna adorn the entire project, and specifically the center of this flower with like a rhinestone, just to kind of jazz it up a little bit more. But then what we're going to do is we're going to pop that probably going to pop dot this right here on the left side of our little hat. And then, of course, take a look at the other camera angle. Once we have this either glued, hot glued, or pop dotted, I'm going to take these petal or the leaves themselves and kind of just finesse them a little bit so that they're kind of just draping off the top of the hat. Okay, so that is that. Oops, I had it wrong. Remember I mentioned we want the long, that little long branch to be kind of going down. So, you know what, I'm just going to pop dot this, and then I can just show you on the other camera here when all's said and done. Just take a little pop dot, pop it right on the back here, and just throw that right onto the top of the hat. And if you don't press too hard, if you don't like where it is, you can always peel it off and just readjust it until you have it exactly where you want it. Okay, I think that looks good. I just kind of finesse things a little bit here and there until you can see what that looks like there on the other camera. Okay, now to the main flower. It's going to go on the front of our hat here. This one's a little more involved, but it's not hard. Definitely has more layers. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with, just start with the backmost layer here, which is this guy here. Okay, I did hit the edges of this with a little bit of turquoise, and we're going to put some rhinestones on these as well, just to make them look nice. And you know what, actually, let's just do the flower first. So you'll see that the flower is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections, and they kind of go from large to small. So when we build this, we do want to make sure that we do it in order. Okay, so just kind of get a visual and compare, make sure that you have them in the correct order. So they're going to go like that. And what we want to do is we're going to want to fold these in. Okay, so just fold all of them, and you're going to do the same thing for all of these. And again, because we're gluing this and assembling it like so, we may need to go back in and just kind of finesse this once we get it into place. But take each of the petals and just curl them back using your dowel. I think this is an 1/8" dowel, so it's really tiny. The diameter is tiny, so it will really put a nice curve into each of these petals. Just wrap each petal around your dowel, just to give it that nice look, and then you can kind of pinch it back up like so. Okay, and that's kind of what we want it to look like. And we're just going to repeat that same process all the way through until we have all the layers nice and trained and ready to be glued together. I think I'm just going to glue them as I go, but I do need to go and train each of these little petals. And I think it kind of helps to add a little tension. Well, maybe just with this paper, but if you add a little bit of tension, you won't get the creasing as much when you do this, and it'll look nice and smooth. So just once you get the hang of it, it goes pretty quick. I'm just kind of taking the petal, pressing with my finger to hold it in place, and then just wrapping it. It's almost like, you know, curling your hair. I've never done it, but I've seen it done. I don't really have enough hair to curl, but you get what I mean. It's like using a curling iron, sort of. Okay, so let's just pop that back up. And now the smaller one that we just did, the first one, is going to go inside this larger one. So we can take and just throw a little bit of glue on the inside. And you want to stagger the petals so they're not on top of each other. So this petal on the smaller one is in between these petals on this larger one. Okay, and then just glue that, making sure that the holes align. It's kind of your center point. just to make sure that you have it centered. If it's a little bit off, it's not the end of the world. We've got a nice little stamen piece that we're going to put on here. And you can see that when I'm kind of putting these together, these do tend to flatten out. So don't worry about that too much. Once we get it in place, we can just kind of finesse the little petals and get it to look the way we want. But again, same thing here on this one. I'm just going to fold these up and then train them by wrapping them around my dowel. There's a lot of little details in this flower that make it what it is. So you definitely don't want to just glue it flat. It's going to look really boring and not very lifelike. It's going to look like it just got run over by a car or something, and we don't want that. Our Mad Hatter likes to pick fresh flowers and put them in his cap. Maybe there's, maybe it smells like something. Well, it probably smells like a flower because it's a flower. Maybe it has some sort of medicinal properties. All right, so we'll throw some glue here in the center again. Take these guys here, and again, we're just kind of staggering the middle layer now with the back layer, and just also making sure that the holes align nicely. There we go. Okay, give that a squeeze. And mine's a tiny bit off. The holes aren't, well, now it's fine. I kind of adjusted it, but you know, don't beat yourself up if it's not perfect. And I'm doing it now because I have OCD, but you don't really need to worry about finessing the petals just yet. We still have 3 more layers to go here. Okay, so again, fold them up. I think it's a little bit easier to fold these up with the larger petals, and then again, take that and just wrap it around the dowel, just so they're kind of dangling backwards. They're fighting gravity. Okay. I know a lot of you guys love the Dreaming Tree flowers, and they're very therapeutic to work on, actually, so I don't blame you. I like it too. And believe it or not, I don't usually talk this much, but I feel like well, kind of have to, because this is a tutorial. But if you met me in real life, I could talk your ear off, but I like my quiet time too. Anyway, all right, so let's get our glue on the next layer here. Take the previous 3 and watch for that hole in the center. Get that lined up. Make sure that the petals are somewhat staggered, not on top of each other. You can see how they kind of alternate and kind of zigzag and crisscross. All right, again, I'm not going to worry about fluffing this thing up yet and finessing it, because we've still got 2 more sections to go. And we've still got a stamen to put together. Now with this larger petal, you can do one of 2 things. You can continue using the small dowel, and that is really going to curl them back a lot. You can see what that's doing. Whereas if I use a larger dowel, or in this case my pencil, it doesn't curl them as much. And I think I kind of like where this is going with the thinner dowel, so I'm going to continue doing that. Again, that's personal preference. It really depends on how you want it to look. So if you used a even skinnier dowel, you'd get even more of a curl. Okay, it's all about how we're kind of training the little fibers in the paper. And there's more than one way to do it. There's no right or wrong way. I'm just kind of showing you my interpretation of the final result here based on Ron's vision when he created the product. Okay, there we go. We got one more, and of course I still have one more set of petals. Okay, and I'm going to pop these back up a little bit because they kind of flattened out as I was training. And you can see the difference between the one that I did with the thicker pencil compared to the thinner dowel. That one doesn't curl quite as much, and now it does because I hit it with the dowel. Okay, so let's get our glue right on the center here. Grab our previous stack, watch for that circle in the center, make sure that the petals are offset, and just kind of give it a squeeze, and that's looking nice. And we're definitely gonna kind of flare this out a little bit once it's all said and done, because it's really kind of flat. I mean, it looks really cool actually right now, but we're definitely going to finesse it once it's all done here. And there's not much left to do here. We do have a stamen yet to put in the center of this, and I really want to know where my 1/4-inch dowel is. I almost feel like I'm lost without it. Oh well, I'll have to find it, or maybe get myself another one. All right, so curling the last petal. Another thing you could do is you could do it this way. Instead of curling it, you can just kind of bend it over and then run the dowel through it. And that's actually giving me a cleaner end result. It doesn't look as creased. So there you go again with, you know, as my science teacher used to say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I kind of, now that I'm a cat person, I don't really like that analogy, but it's the first thing that came to mind. So, all right, little glue there. Watch the hole in the center, offset the petals, and squeeze. Hold that in place for just a moment. Here we go. And you know, this could be a good time to kind of maybe fluff things up a little bit. Just fluff it. Doesn't have to be, you know, no exact rhyme or reason. And as you see in nature, no flower is completely perfect. So it's okay if you, yeah, that looks nice actually. I like that. If you have, if it's single-sided, you're going to want to curl the pattern inward onto itself so that the white is on the outside, because we're going to end up taking these little frilly stamen pieces and popping them out. So all you want to do is just kind of wrap it nice and tight around itself, and I'm just kind of starting it there in the center, and then what I'll do is just take a little bit of glue, just a really thin line, or maybe just even a series of dots, because sometimes when I do a line, when I get towards the end, I got a big glob of glue, and just throw a little glue along that bottom part there and just wrap it around until you get all the way to the end. Try to keep the bottom nice and flush and consistent. Okay, and I'm kind of going slow. I may need to reapply some glue as I get towards the bottom, although this is a gold foil, so it's not necessarily like sucking in the glue and drying it out. There's really no nooks and crannies for it to do that, but just as a precaution, I'm just going to hit this with a little extra glue, just like that, and just continue rolling it down. And you're just putting glue on the solid area, not the little area with the little frilly parts. And just keep on rolling it nice and tight all the way to the bottom. And then when you get to the bottom, just kind of pinch it right at the end there and hold it in place until it's fully set. And while you're holding it, you can just begin flaring these out, and you can see the beautiful gold starting to show through where it was once white. Now it's gold. And there's a little white tip on there. And you know what? There's some white in the project, so I'm probably just going to leave that alone. If you don't like the white, you could take an ink pad and just kind of hit it with a little bit of ink and cover up that white. But I don't not like it, and I don't hate it. So I'm going to just kind of roll with it, and I'm really going to pop these out and make them very pronounced and really angle them out, because I want this little stamen piece to really fill in the center of the flower. I don't want it to be too packed together. Okay, so there we go. That looks nice. Beautiful. Okay, so all that's left to do is throw a little bit of glue right on the bottom of our little statement piece. Now I'm gonna get a nice wad of glue on there. Okay, you got a little hole there in the center. Use that as your guide. Drop it right in. You can see how nicely that fills in that little area. And just kind of keep it nice and centered until it starts to get tacky and really holds. I'm just going to hold that in my finger for just a moment. So that's really it for the main flower that's going to go on the front. We just have to now glue this to the little leaves and stuff. I'm going to just put this down for a minute while we get everything else prepped. The first thing we're going to prep here is, well, we've got a series of leaves here, and I'm going to take this and just pinch right at the little score marks there. So just kind of fold it and then pinch the tip like that. Okay, and these are going to be kind of pointing down like that. Okay, so what we can do is get our glue right on this little circle here, and our flower is round. So, well, let's just make sure that we're getting it nice and centered there, like that, and then we can put it on our surface and press down. Okay, there we go. Oops. Kind of smushing my stamens a little bit. That's okay. Okay, our next layer here is this little viney thing. We got some viney thing happening here. This one also has some score marks for some pinching. So go ahead and pinch that. Give it a little dimension on all of these. I went ahead and inked these as well with a dark green. This is actually the same paper that we used for the brim and for the panels, so it's really thick. Okay, and that is going to go like that. What we can do is just throw a little bit of glue. Well, probably should have put it here. That's fine. And the smooth leaves are going to go on the left, and our kind of almost scallopy leaves are going to go on the right. Just get that nice and centered onto the back. You want it kind of looking like that. Maybe a little more like that. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, just hold that in place for a moment. That paper doesn't want to grab as well as the other. And finally, we've got this little piece here, and that's going to be sticking up. So we can just throw a little glue here and grab this. Just kind of connect it, get it centered on there. We can always kind of adjust it while it's grabbing. And we want that about right there. Okay, so again, this piece here, I'm gonna throw some rhinestones right on these little pieces here. But you know what? I just realized that we're pretty much done. That's it. Okay, so once this is all dried, and of course this is glitter, so it's taken forever. Curse you, glitter. Okay. Anyway, just to show you kind of what we're going to do is we're going to pop dot that right onto the front of the box. That's a little out of focus, but I'll show you here on the other camera in just a moment what that's going to look like. All right, well, there she is. I love it. Very whimsical, definitely a stunning centerpiece for either a party, a Mad Hatter party, definitely something different for Easter, and of course it doubles as a gift box. So hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial, and I cannot wait to see your version of this. So if you do make this, please join myself and the 10,000, almost 11,000 plus other dreamers in our official Facebook group. Head over to Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, and we'd love to see what you've been up to. And again, if you enjoyed the video, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button. That lets me know that you enjoy crafting and hanging out with me. And as always, I look forward to crafting with you again.
Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.